factorising quadratics. Just use this as a memory sheet just to go through everything we've learnt. And so we're going to look at 4 types of questions. Firstly, let's call it the simple idea. So let's take a question, 6x squared plus x equals 0. And I want to find the values of x so that it equals 0. So I'm going to factorise this out. I'm going to take x out. So I'm left with that. And now I can say, what do I times by x times what is 0? Well, if that x is 0, then this side becomes 0. So I know that one possible answer is x is 0, but also inside that bracket it's got to equal 0. And so what I can do here is I can then work out what the value of x is for this to be 0. So what's attached and how's it attached and what's the opposite? So I've got +1, so I'm going to take 1 away from both sides. So I get that. And then I'm going to get rid of the times by 6 by dividing both sides by 6. So I get that. So I get my 2 possible answers are minus 1/6 and 0. So that's a simple idea. We factorise out where we can. But what happens when we have a question that has an extra thing, like a constant to it? Let's call this level 2. So for instance, if we say x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0. So we can't factorise because we haven't got an x there so easily. So what we do is we put a and m there. And what I need to be able to do is find 2 numbers that multiply to make plus 6, that when added make 5 plus 5. So I can start with the simple ones like 1 and 6, and they could be both plus or they could be both negatives. If I add them together, I don't get my plus 5. So let's think of other numbers. What about plus 2 and plus 3? And you can see here that if I multiply these together, I get my 6. If I add them together, I get my 5. So here are my ones that I put in the bracket. So I do my brackets like this, equate that to 0, and in one I put plus 2, the other I put plus 3. So for this bracket to equal 0, x must be negative 2. For this bracket to be 0, x must be negative 3. So that's level 2 done, rather. Now let's look at the next level up. And this is one where we have negative numbers. So let's call this level 3. And here I have negative numbers. And negative numbers can always present an extra element of confusion. So let's have a question. Let's say x squared minus 3x minus 10 equals 0. So again, what I want to do is I want to put my a above the negative 3 and my m above the negative 10. And I want 2 numbers that multiply to make negative 10 that when added together make negative 3. Now 1 and 10 isn't going to be any good because I can't get negative 3. But if I look at 2 and 5, then they might help. Now I've got to have a minus 10. So one of these has to be a plus, one has to be a minus. And because this is a minus, this big one's a minus, when I add them, I need the biggest value to drag it down to a minus. So that's got to be my minus, and that's got to be my plus. And if I work it through, plus 2 minus 5 is minus 3. 2 times 5 is 10, plus times minus is a minus. So there are my answers. You need to take time with this, and eventually you'll get into the rhythm of it all. So there we go. Here are my answers. Put them in brackets. And so this bracket has to equal 0. So therefore x could be negative 2. Or this bracket equals 0. So x could be 5. And so that's how you deal with level 3. Now, we're going to come across to the most challenging one of them all. Okay, and that is ones where we have a coefficient of x squared is greater than 1. So these are my challenge questions. So let's try a challenge question. Okay, so let's have 2x squared minus 7x minus 15 equals 0. Now for this one, slightly different. I have a p now here, a n. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on a slightly circuitous route. So I'm going to look at values that multiply to make negative 30 this time. So I want values that make negative 30 that add together to make minus 7. So again, I want minus 30. I can do 1 and 30, but I'm not going to get anywhere near that value there. So I could look at 15 times 2. 15 and 2, again, they don't get anywhere near there. So let's look at 3 and 10, and that's quite useful. 3 and 10. And now, again, I want one's going to be a minus and one's going to be a plus. The biggest guy is going to be minus because it's going to drag it down. If that was a plus 7, then the biggest guy would be a plus. But because this is minus 7, the biggest value here, the minus, must be here, minus 10. And then I can see that I get my minus 30 when I multiply, and when I add, I get my minus 7. So now I put them into brackets like this, and this isn't, we're not complete in any way yet. Notice now, I'm actually putting it as 2x and 2x. When I multiply these out, I get 4x squared. I don't get that, but I can deal with that later. Drop the plus 3 in, drop the minus 10 in. And now what I'm going to do is deal with that issue we spoke about. So let's put this up here. So I have, and hopefully you'll notice something here with these numbers. Hopefully you'll notice that you can divide both these by 2. And that's really good because that means I end up with x minus 5 equals 0. And I want to check to see if this is right. So I'm going to check. So to do that, I'm going to multiply these together. That gets my 2x squared, which I want. I'm then going to multiply this together, so I get plus 3x. And this one together, so I get minus 10x. I put it underneath. And then lastly, the last one's 3 times 5 is 15, and it's minus. So let's deal with this. Get my 2x squared. That's my minus 7x minus 15. And that's what I want there. So this tells me that both brackets, if I make each of those brackets 0, then I can find the values of x. So let's look at this one here, simpler one. For that to be 0, x must be 5. And now this one here, 2x plus 3 to be 0. There's a couple of operations I need to deal with, so I'm going to use this method, which I really like. And I'm going to say, firstly, I'm going to get rid of the plus 3 by taking it away from both sides. So I get that. Now I'm going to deal with the times by 2 by dividing both sides by 2. So I get that. And so my answers here are 5 and minus 3 over 2. It's a bit odd there, doesn't it? So let's write them out again. It's either that x equals 5 or minus 3 over 2. And I hope that this has helped you understand how to do factorising of quadratics. There are other methods that you can use, like using formulae and an equation, but hopefully this has helped you today. Have a nice one.